In a way, the instinct to be generous towards others is inherently selfish, insofar as the desire to make the world a better place is also the desire to live in a better world. This episode is about the difference between treating others the way you wish to be treated and doing nice things for people with the expectation of compensation. It treads a very fine line to keep Rarity's friends from quite being wrong, yet keep Rarity totally forgivable under the circumstances. What fascinates me about Rarity is that they write her to be both amazingly generous and amazingly egotistical without painting the latter as a problem. And why should they? I may be speaking vainly as one of the most egotistical sons of bitches on planet Earth, but I've never understood how ego is a bad thing unless it clouds your ability of self-reflection. Rarity thinks she's amazing because she is amazing. She sings about setting the bar because she does set the bar and she wants people to follow her example. And they should. Rarity introduces Manehattan as a place with a fixation on karmic balance, although it's never really explained why this city in particular is like this. I think it's meant to suggest that in a city this big with this much going on, there's a constant possibility for good things to happen, and the more good things you put into the city, the more you'll get out of it. This sort of pay-it-forwardism works because when people have their problems taken care of, it leaves them more capable of taking care of the problems of others. The structure of this episode, interestingly enough, both introduces us to the concept of Manehattan's karmic mechanisms and shows us how they pay off, all within the first act. We see Rarity give generously and then receive generously, so it's established immediately that yes, generosity to others can often lead to generosity in return. When Rarity gets fucked over by her old acquaintance, it's easy to see coming that her outpouring of generosity is going to come back to save her at some point, and it's pretty obviously going to come from Coco Pamel. Far more interesting is the conflict which arises out of the pressure that this puts on Rarity. On the one hand, Rarity has done massively generous things for her friends throughout the episode, which she didn't have to do, and she brought them along for the primary purpose of supporting her at the competition the next morning. Twilight tells Rarity at the start of the episode that she should ask if there's anything they can do to help her. So when Rarity eventually does need to fall back on her friends for help, she's being pretty reasonable overall considering the circumstances leading up to it. In this scene, everyone fucks up a little, but in very human ways. Rarity's friends fuck up by making it too clear that they're disappointed, but their disappointment is perfectly reasonable. Likewise, Rarity fucks up by flipping her shit on them, but considering her frustration and everything she's done for them, it's hard to really blame her. But the bottom line is that the main six do, in fact, finish the dresses, yet Rarity, at least in the moment, does not forgive them. None of them actually had to do the work for her. At no point when Rarity was doing them all favors was it established that they would owe her one, so treating it like a transaction with a demand for compensation is a dirty tactic, and when they complied anyways, thankfulness should have been mutual. It's such a subtle level on which Rarity comes out more wrong than her friends. Like, all she had to do was treat them a little better and paint the situation in a gracious light instead of a commanding one, and it would have changed everything, but the way she puts it makes her seem like a dick. And this is the kind of difference that only the emotional, illogical part of our brains can make, yet it's an important and very real distinction nonetheless. In the end, all of the ponies are at least a little bit wrong, but none of them are worried about how the others are wrong. Rarity's friends don't seem to see themselves as wrong at all, but Rarity doesn't mind. Rarity asks for forgiveness, which has already been given. The conflict almost doesn't exist in reality, yet Applejack's outburst of honesty shows us how the effect was felt, even if forgiven, and Rarity's apology absolves any possibility of bad blood. If it sounds like I'm just basking in the details of this exchange, it's because I've had so many moments of this nature among my group of friends that seeing it play out so pitch perfectly here just leaves me in awe of how true to life it all is. The episode's finale has a significant standout moment wherein Rarity says that she's going to stay in Manehattan for a while. It doesn't follow through with the position going to Coco Pamel instead, but I thought it was an interesting placement of this idea that Rarity might leave, because deep inside we know that one day it's going to happen. The more clout she gains and collaborators she pulls, the closer she's going to get to being wrapped up in one of these cultural centers and have to leave Ponyville. There was a moment where I really thought we weren't going to see Rarity for a little while, and it had a sort of poignance that reminded me of the later episodes of K-On! Some random notes. I thought the Grumpy Cat cutie mark was random and dumb, but mostly because the symbol doesn't move with the guy's body, so it looks like it was just slapped on there at the last moment when someone everyone realized that he had made a grumpy cat face. The "Wow, Applejack" line left me in stitches, but my favorite line in the episode is when Rarity screams, "Congratulations," which is a clear ponification of the phrase "Congratulations," and that makes me very happy. Also, Coco Pamel is adorable. Before I wrap up though, I've gotta end this on a bit of a low note. You're probably going to see this brought up in every review of the episode, but Twilight getting denied for a cab is kinda really fucking disturbing. It's bad enough that in any episode where her princesshood isn't explicitly mentioned, we never see her fly or do anything remotely princess-worthy, but the idea that even random pedestrians don't treat her like a princess is kinda daft. There's really no excuse here, cause you're not gonna tell me that no one around noticed a fucking alicorn asking for a ride. Even if they didn't know who she was, the wings and horn are a dead giveaway. I don't want to dwell on this too much since I already ranted about it in the last video, but this whole ignorance of Twilight's princesshood is starting to get really jarring and obnoxious. I'm pretty sure that even little kids can tell that a princess shouldn't be getting denied a cab ride, and they'd call bullshit. Anyways, besides that point, which has more to do with the episode's place in the overall narrative than it has to do with this episode, I thought Rarity Takes Manehattan was fantastic. It's dense, it's got 2 solid songs, lots of little things to think about, like how Applejack lifting this cart probably proves the idea that Earth ponies are exponentially stronger than the others, several memorable new characters, and a strong ethical backdrop for the dialogue. It's definitely my favorite episode of the season so far, probably my favorite Dave Polsky episode to date, and possibly one of my favorites in the entire show.
If you could see you, would you be proud at all the times you left me in the crowd, the days spent in town, skipping our classes, making out, finally it's so hard to sing about.
Hey yo, you may have noticed a little bit of rebranding going on around my channel. I've shortened my name back down to Digibro, which for those who don't know was my name before Digibrony anyways. Calling me or crediting me as Digibrony is still correct, and my pony is still named Digibrony, so you don't really have to change anything. I'm just rebranding my profiles because I'm going to be covering more than just pony from here on out. I hope you'll stick around for whatever may come.